Welcome everyone to EIPIP meeting 32. We are trying to skip the first agenda item, that is progress on ERC's repo. I do not see Light Client on the call, so maybe we can come back to this item later on. Number 2 item listed here is, should we care about people making statements regarding trademark in informational EIPs? I found that in a comment left by you, Micah. Micah, you would want to speak more to it?
Sure, let me pull up the EIP real quick. Sorry, I thought it was going to be at the end of the agenda, so I wasn't prepared.
I mean, it's fine. If you want to bring it up at the end of the agenda, it's fine.
No, it's fine. I just need to reopen it, so I had it closed. Someone was writing an informational EIP that talks about they're proposing the appropriate way to use the term Ethereum mainnet. Right now, it's pretty used in a bunch of different contexts, a bunch of different ways. They're basically just trying to clean up the language around Ethereum when you're like speaking or when you're presenting or writing a blog post or whatever. Just this is kind of the official way we talk about the Ethereum main primary network. And that's all fine. It's informational EIP, so not particularly stringent on the requirements. However, there's one section in there that has a note about the trademark. Apparently, Ethereum, the word Ethereum, is trademarked by the Ethereum Foundation. And so it mentions that trademark and references it and indicates that it makes me a little uncomfortable to start having like legal stuff in EIPs. And so I wanted to get other editor opinions on that, or other, I guess not just editors, other people's thoughts on EIPs making statements about like how trademarks are supposed to be used, for example.
Yeah, sounds like a big red flag. Like, I guess to add more color there, I think the EF has tried, as I understand it, to not use the trademark except to defend against scams. So one of the big, I think probably the biggest use case for the trademark is when there's like a scam YouTube account that's like an imposter for the Ethereum Foundation or for Ethereum. The EF needs to own the trademark so that YouTube takes down that account. But I think, beyond that, like saying, it seems very weird to try to like impart how the EF would use their trademark in an EIP that's not written by the EF. Yeah, it just seems very weird in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so just to make sure that we're all on the same page context-wise, I don't want to misrepresent this person. Let me just read the text here. Even though the name of the network is Ethereum mainnet, which is what the CIP is about, it will be necessary for your application. It may be critical here. It may be necessary for your application to show this as Ethereum, like a little R circled mainnet, and include a note like Ethereum is a registered trademark of Ethereum Foundation elsewhere. For more information on your obligations when mentioning Ethereum trademark, see, and then it references the USPTO registration number and the note at the bottom of the terms of use page. So they're not making strong recommendations. Yeah. Like they're not saying you must use the trademark or anything like that. They're just making people aware of it, I guess. It still feels...
it feels weird because no single project, no project says we're using Ethereum TM, right? Like,
yeah,
it just seems like I don't know. Yeah, I would not include it, but that's my
so I guess the follow-up question. So the follow-up question then, if no one wants to argue for it, I'm weakly against it. I expressed this to the author. They seem pretty adamant about keeping it included. So my normal strategy here would be I don't merge it and leave it some other author or some other editor to merge it. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any other editors in the room right now. So that means this will be one of those EIPs that sits forever unmerged, and that feels like a really bad way of doing governance. But it's the current way we do things. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that aspect of it.
if this is helpful, I can ask the EF what they think about it and if they can leave a public comment, but I'm not sure they will want to do that. But, you know, I don't want to speak.
It's not.
I get, definitely don't want to speak up. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
I'm sure if you want to just give them a quick ask and just to see if they're interested in commenting. Like if they are, that might help settle things and just move things forward. If not,
so
what I'll probably do is to... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I'll ask.
So what I'll probably do then, if we don't hear anything, is I'll tell the author, I'm not comfortable merging this unless that trademark section is removed. However, you might have luck contacting one of the other EIP editors and seeing if they want to merge it. I believe this particular author has run into this problem before, so they know who the other editors are, and so maybe one of them will merge.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. I have seen that the author has made quite a few pull requests for a few EIPs and have been an author for EIPs that has been, you know, in the final stage as well. So yeah, I'm expecting that he may have some visibility. So let's wait for that. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is progress on JSON RPC API spec in eth1.o repository. I see Alita on the call. I believe someone from the team also joined, but I can't see him anymore. Alita, if you have any updates or if you would like to share something on that.
Yeah, so there's progress on it. I recently finished ETH call, or I got to draft. I spoke with Tomas about kind of my involvement and stuff, and Tomas appears to be like recommending me to be doing the project, but it's not super clear about like there's no like official like, oh, I'm the one doing this. So it has me a little bit not sure if I should be putting in too much time into it or whatever, because I don't want to, you know, waste time. But yeah, so we're kind of in a bit of a place that is sort of blocking progress in a sense, because I kind of need assurance that I'm gonna be the one working on this. But to follow up as well, like we are in the process of drafting up all of the JSON RPCs and prioritizing the ones that should be done first. I know I mentioned on a ETH Magician's post about this, like about which ones are the most important in pertaining to EIP 1559. So I guess just to kind of like summarize a bit, it's going okay, but it's challenging, I think, at times to put too much time into it just because I'm not like the official person working on it. I'd like to be, but there could also be other people that would like to. So I spoke with Pooja about this as well, and we're hopefully posting something soon, some sort of thing on GitHub or ECH Medium to invite comment or proposal. I think that pretty much covers it.
In my experience in this space, if you just start doing some work that no one else is doing and do it well, no one will challenge you.
I echo to that. So
okay.
I have shared.
You do it.
Yeah, I have shared the PRs that has been submitted by Alita in the chat. It's for JSON RPC API. If I remember correctly, in one of the earlier meetings, we decided that we should be providing access of ETH1O specs to maybe Tomas to kind of have the permissions to merge these pull requests after review, and when they believe that this is ready to be merged in the repository. I am yet to work on that. I have received his email, GitHub ID yesterday, and maybe I'll be doing it today. And yeah, if anybody has any comments on that, on the pull request, it is there. One thing that I would like to get more clarity on, and I have mentioned it to Alita and Tomas earlier, like the part where Alita is mentioning that she's getting like not clarity on what to do, when to do, or how to do. I mean, obviously she's having some pictures, but if we kind of create issues for whatever task she is working on, and we keep on closing the issues, I think that will give us the visibility that she is working on these particular tasks. And if there are tasks that she may not have time to do, and if you would like to invite people to do from like from the community, we can do that. So I believe the post that we discussed would be helpful.
I think it's also worth discussing a bit of a plan on my end, which is like if there isn't clarity on if I'm going to be the one officially doing it, like I don't know, say like by Friday, because that's like a week after I submitted ETH-Call. I think I'm just going to kind of start doing it just because. I mean, I know that it's an important thing. I'd like to, you know, make progress on it. So, yeah, I think that we can definitely follow up with all of that, with the issues and stuff. And actually, one thing that's important is, Pooja, do you mind giving me write access to the JSON RPC repo? That would help me a lot. But that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, if I understand correctly, in one of the meetings when we had Tomas on the call, we discussed that you would be making pull requests and creating issues, and that would be reviewed by a group of people, maybe from client teams or Micah or whatever the group you have created on Discord, maybe, and then only one person from the team would be having the access to merge that. So, I mean, I'm okay. I do not have any problem doing that, but yeah, I think getting some clarity on that would be helpful.
So the reason that I want the right access is so that way I can create branches off of the repo itself, and because that makes life a lot easier for me. As far as the merging is concerned, I mean, I think that you can trust that I'm not going to merge something without approval. I don't think it's a major concern, especially considering the fact that JSON RPC spec hasn't been written yet, so there's not really anything to mess up. And GitHub also can be reverted.
Yeah, I totally get that. Please ping me your GitHub ID. I think that should be fine. That is doable.
Sure.
Okay. Anything more on this topic? Okay. Moving on, the next item is progress on canonical source of EIPs. I have added the link for a WIP document that is created and maintained by Brent Alsop. I believe you have some progress on that. If you would like to
Yeah, I basically wanted to, so I missed the first item where we talked about progress on creating a new ERC repository. So do we have some people that are going to make that a separate ERP repository, or what was the decision on that?
Actually, we skipped that. We are going to come back later because we received a message from LightCline that he would be late. I mean, maybe.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back.
But anyway, I guess the same issue has to do with the meta EIPs. Do we want to, and so I guess the core issue there is just we need to decide where we want a home for everything. And so I'm just trying to figure out what would work best for everyone, or find out what everyone wants.
My personal recommendation is, for now, we just focus on getting ERCs out and see how that goes. And then if it goes smoothly and well, then we can talk about moving other things out. But we should probably plan for the kind of medium-term future that only ERCs will be extracted until such time as we actually succeed at that.
So does that mean we want to leave the EIP 1 and the meta EIPs in there, or do we want to, because I know that was proposed, pulling those out, or do we, so what would you like to do with that?
So for the general meta and informational EIPs, I think leaving them is fine. EIP 1, I feel like, is very special. And so if we believe that there's a better place for EIP 1 to live, I'm not against that. I'm also fine with it staying with the other meta EIPs for now. Again, this is all personal opinion.
So in other words, it sounds to me like then, so on the EIP, eips.ethereum.org, we have tabs for all and for core and meta and all that, but there's also one for ERCs. So do we want to leave that tab there, but when you click on it, go to the other repository or something like that? Or
in a perfect world, it would. So in a perfect world, I think we would still have the same page layout and everything. It would just pull from two different sources. I suspect that the engineering effort required to achieve that is significantly higher than just making that tab
to have
just link out.
Have someone maintain a whole ERC repository and stuff like that. So, and I guess that's my question: is is there any way we can expect someone to do all of that extra work? I guess is my question. Because if we can get someone
probably
to do all
not realistically.
Right.
Like historically, we've struggled to get engineering work on this sort of stuff, and so I think that we should probably plan on not getting that engineering work done. In which case, if we extract out, or if and when we extract out the ERCs into a separate repo, we'll probably lose them from the all list, so they'll no longer show up in the all section of the EIPs page. And then that ERC tab, we can keep the tab, but the tab will just now link out to a separate page.
Right.
So it'll be ercs.ethereum.org or whatever. It's just, and that'll just be like a link. And we can just put it like at the end, maybe we rearrange it so it's at the end of the list instead of the middle. Just make it a little more clear that it's external. Maybe put those little external link icons next to it or something. I don't know.
Okay, great. Sounds good. So there's also the other talk of moving towards a model that the Ether2 has where it sounds like we want to, the talk there was completely get away from ERCs and just have pull requests against the Python script and stuff like that. Do we want to worry about any of that right now, or is that all future stuff? Or
I think that's sufficiently far in the future that it's probably not worth worrying about right now. I think it sounds like most of the people involved in the AP process would prefer that. And in fact, the feedback I've gotten from just core devs and whatnot also seems kind of generally positive. And so I think it's one of those things that like everybody kind of agrees, yeah, that would be nice. That's a good idea. But the effort involved in getting to like MVP for it, it's like the very first version that we can launch, is relatively huge relative compared to our manpower. And so I would not plan on that or build around that at the moment. I think it's too far in the future to really plan for at this point.
Okay, so let me see if I've got it all right then. So we are going to continue on as planned, and we're going to leave room for, if we can find some resources to split out ERCs, we will hopefully do that. But for the time being, we'll just keep on working with what we got, and I'll keep working in that direction.
That sounds about right. Yeah, ERCs, I'm pretty sure at this point are going to be extracted. It's just a question of when. The rest of it is very much more in the air and questionable. But that being said, the extraction of ERCs should be, from the point of view of the organizational work that you're doing, I think the extraction of ERCs is going to be a relatively small change to that. Like it's literally just like the EIP's list will shrink a little bit because it will no longer include ERCs, and that link at the top of the page will be an external link instead of an internal link. That's, I think, basically it.
Okay. And we should also make it pretty clear on like the actual EIPIP.ethereum.org page that this has changed, right? Because one big problem we had when we moved, say, like the hard fork metas out of the EIPs is now nobody can find the specs for the hard forks. So I think we want to be pretty like explicit where this stuff is moving to. Even, you know, like I agree, like having the link there is good, but also just having probably a note or like a warning at the top of EIPIP.ethereum.org that says, hey, if you're looking for ERCs, this is the right place. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's brilliant. I'll take notes down and make sure we include that. So yeah, thanks for all that.
And yeah, just one note also on the idea of like changing to match, you know, the E2 spec. I suspect if we do that, we probably still will keep core EIPs as like the way to define those changes, maybe, because basically what the Python spec would be is, you know, the current spec as is, but when you propose an idea, it's not going to be part of the spec, right? It'll be something that's like separate from it. and there'll still be debates about what gets included and whatnot, and it's probably very messy to have those live in just like open PRs to the spec that are not merged. So I would not be surprised to have something where like you have the Python spec, and then once an EIP is accepted, you just open a PR against the spec and actually update it, or you only open a PR per hard fork or something, and you say, this is like the changes for London, which is kind of what E2 does.
Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that like the EIPs will go away, but it just means that it's almost closer to the yellow paper going away than to the EIP repo.
Okay, that makes sense. So basically, it sounds like then, so there will still be some kind of proposal for EIPs, but there'll be a clear gate. So that's all ahead of a decision being made, and then once it's accepted, then the pull request is done, and then it's officially pulled into the spec. Is that
something like that, right? Which is roughly what
I think
we do.
We should
go ahead.
I think we should probably talk about this more, because I think everybody else that I've been talking to is assuming the opposite of what you just said, which is that we would just submit PRs against the spec directly, and there would not be any APs.
It's like a very naive assumption, given the ratio between the proposed EIPs and the merged EIPs, right? Like we have probably 10 or 100x more proposals than we have things that go into hard forks. So yeah, and to be clear, I don't think that's been decided, but yeah, it feels like it would be very weird to have like 100 open PRs against the spec, and then we pick the top 5 of those, and then the rest just like, I don't know, gets closed or something. It seems odd, but yeah, it's not like the.
Out of curiosity, what makes that odd to you? Like what
I
about
guess the
having
fact that
open PRs?
Yeah,
do you feel is detrimental?
So the fact that there's no like I guess artifact after, right? Like take prog pow, just to take something that didn't get in that's important. What do you do with like the prog pow PR after it's not in London, for example? Whereas now the EIP is still there, and I think that's kind of good that there's like a long-term artifact to it. And that's, I guess that's like a political one, but there's also the case where like EIP was at 2200, which supersedes another EIPs and whatnot. So when EIPs start building off of each other, it feels also cleaner to link like an actual thing than to link like this PR supersedes this PR and whatnot. Like it's
so this would be for, it'd be for core EIPs only. So we don't have to worry too much about the supersedes, because we'd just be updating the spec to now say, before this block, so like the spec would say, prior to some EIP, the spec would say, this is the rule. And then the EIP would make a change to the spec that says, if fork block less than X, this is the rule, else this is the rule, kind of thing. And so we would still retain the history aspect. For the prog pow and similar, I mean, there's a lot of, prog pow is one example, but there are many, you're right, of EIPs that are proposed, and they're reasonable, and they're generally good ideas, they're well thought out. And they deserve to exist, but they're not part of Ethereum. I think that's the class that I think we're talking about here. For those ones, my personal view is I'm not opposed to just leaving them open PRs. There is, from a management standpoint, we have to make sure we don't get to a position where we can't manage all the open PRs, but I think with GitHub labels, we can handle that pretty easily. And just say like, this EIP is like considered for inclusion label, would make it so you can filter and see, okay, what's actually being considered right now instead of all the things. And then things that are like explicitly like were considered but rejected would have maybe another label, so you can filter those out easily. And so I feel like my gut tells me, which my gut here is very weak on this, but I weakly feel like we can make it so having hundreds or thousands of open PRs is not unmanageable, as long as we have a good system in place for managing that.
Oh, okay. So yeah, guess I'm having troubles understanding the difference between what Micah and Tim are saying. It sounds like both Micah and Tim want to split apart. There's the governance part where things are being proposed and people are trying to get people on board. And then there's the bridge when something finally gets accepted, then a pull request is done and officially makes it into the spec. So it sounds like
the difference is what I'm proposing is that as soon as someone has an idea for a change to the spec, they can open a PR and make that proposal as an official spec change. So like that is the first step in the official process. Like you can there's idea steps before that where you like just chat on forums or Discord or whatever. But once you want to make it official that you want to propose a change, you open a PR that actually changes the specification. And then that PR may sit open for months or years, depending on how long it takes before it actually goes into hard fork. And the act of merging is like, okay, hard fork launched kind of thing. And so that the merging into the spec means this is what Ethereum mainnet is now. Whereas Tim is suggesting that we have some other process for iterating on spec changes that is separate from those PRs. And the PR step is very close to the end of the process. And so you submit a PR perhaps when we've decided on fork blocks or when it goes onto a testnet or something along those lines.
Oh, okay.
So you're at the very end.
So you're saying include the proposal and governance part in the PR process. It's just you tag them as not accepted yet or whatever.
Yeah, they'd have a label that indicates this isn't considered for inclusion yet, or this isn't. And like part of this is, Matt's here. Good. So is that Lake Client Matt or is that a different Matt? I don't actually know your last name or Matt's last name. So Matt has argued with me in the past that the EIP's repo or the Ethereum specs repo should specify Ethereum mainnet. Like that's the thing that it should be specifying, not Ethereum-like things. And so if we went down this route, I think we would be moving towards that worldview where EIPs are not a general thing, or this, I guess, Ethereum specs repo is not a general purpose thing. This is specifically the definition for mainnet. It is not the definition for things that are like mainnet or even the test networks. This is specifically the definition for mainnet.
Okay.
It does create complexity for testnets. That's actually, didn't really think about it until now, but like if we're doing PRs to a specifications repo, and they don't get merged to the specs repo until mainnet, then defining what is Rinkeby is no longer trivial. Like it's no longer just, oh, it's EIP 1559.
What if you have like branches? Like this is the Rinkeby branch. I mean, it's not super nice, but like you could have branches with like the full spec for the testnet, and then you could have like a tracker where it's like, these are the PRs, because like they're still going to be kind of like EIPs, but it's like, these are the PRs that we're adding, just so it's like an easy place that someone can look and see, these are kind of the chains that are being discussed.
So actually, this is what we're discussing. So do you believe there should still be core EIPs, or should there only be PRs against the spec?
I think there should only be PRs against the spec. I think that, what I've felt after trying to write several EIPs is that you end up writing the same thing over and over again for like, half of the EIP. Like you're trying to describe the situation and you're trying to set up like what is mainnet, when in reality, like if they were just PRs against the spec, you don't have to do that anymore. You just have to say, here's the diff against spec, and then you can just focus on the rationale.
And the rationale, would that be integrated into the spec, like maybe as some sort of commenting system, or would that be just like the PR description kind of thing is where the rationale lives?
I mean, that's a good question. I think like in the PR is okay, because that's how a lot of other governance systems sort of work as far as I'm aware. Like if you look at like the Rust language, like how they do RFCs, it's like all just PRs into the RFC repo, and the discussions are kind of there. I don't know if they have, I mean, it's like different, obviously, like RFCs are not quite the same as a consensus definition of what mainnet is. I don't think I have like a really strong opinion on whether it should be in the PR in a separate document. It should, wherever it is, it should be accessible pretty quickly, and it should be documented historically.
Okay, I think I got that. I'm going to try and write some of that up. Go ahead.
Just for you, Brent, everything is up in the air. No one's decided on anything.
Right. So, yeah, that's what I'm struggling with.
It's I appreciate your struggle and frustration. Like I said, I would work under the assumption that we still have core EIPs. We still are doing the EIP process as it is today.
Okay.
Maybe at some point in the future, that process will change. But for, I think, your work, you can kind of just ignore that. The only thing I think that matters for your work is just the ERCs are almost certainly going to be split out from the EIPs.
Okay.
That part I'm pretty sure is going to happen, and hopefully in the very near future.
Okay, great. Yeah, that puts a bounding box around what I need to do. So, okay, I'll move forward to that. Thanks so much for the help.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so I also wanted to give a small suggestion or proposal. I don't know, that is something coming up in my mind. Like whatever we have been discussing about, like that may happen in future about like managing it through specs using pull request for updating the specs of the mainnet. I find that very similar to ETH2 process, right? So I was wondering, like we are working on London upgrade right now. I know this is not the right audience to kind of decide on anything, but I just want to share my thoughts. Like right now we are working on London and we are following the process that we came up last year during like a long conversation in this EIPIP meeting itself. But for the next upgrade, maybe Shanghai before the merge, if we are expecting that, I think it's worth giving a shot that we should try this PR stuff. I mean, I don't know. I do not have any clear picture right now, but my thought would be like feature-based pull request. If somebody wants to add something.
So yeah, we can't do that if we're doing Shanghai because there is no spec of Ethereum 1. It's something that's possibly being worked on, but it's definitely a prerequisite. Like we don't have something to do PRs against right now. Maybe for the merge, we could do it. And actually that's what they're doing on the E2 side. But if Shanghai is just like a feature fork, the odds of having like a spec is very low, and I wouldn't want to put that as a blocker.
Yeah, I think unless we hire someone full-time who already has experience with Ethereum, realistic timeline for getting a full spec written is probably like a year. Even if we hire someone full-time, I think realistic timeline is probably a year.
Yeah.
Like we're basically saying someone needs to write a Python client that is specifically written to be readable, not to be fast. Like there currently is PyEthereum, but it's designed to actually execute relatively quickly, and therefore it's harder to read. This is a rewrite of a entire Ethereum client that is explicitly designed to be readable.
Yeah, and I think there's a few different people or groups that are somewhat interested on it, but I'm not sure they've made that interest public, and you know that it's more than a hobby. So like, yeah, it's something I've been spending a bit of time looking on and talking with folks who might be interested, but I doubt. Yeah, I think in the best of best cases, like we would get something 6-ish months from now, but that would be too late for Shanghai if it's a feature fork, and possibly for the merge too. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that would have been a nice to have feature. I mean, obviously nice to have process in place, but never mind. We also have to consider a lot of other constraints along with this process. Okay, so one last thing that I wanted to discuss in this topic, particularly about meta. I don't want to bring like the entire thing here, like moving off EIP1 and all. Just one thing, like for this past 2 upgrades, we are having a .md file for Berlin, a .md file for London. So what do people in general think about if we create, if we like kind of move the meta files, which were for earlier upgrades here, or maybe a copy of that? No, copy wouldn't make sense, but yeah, I'm moving.
Sorry, move them where?
To the ETH1 spec, like we have like network upgrade section in which we are keeping all upgrades. We are keeping it for London, we are keeping it for Berlin, and even if we have, I believe there is a file created for Shanghai as well, so we can move it there.
Are you talking about moving the old hard fork meta EIPs there? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I would love it if someone just sat down and just kind of transcribed the hard fork metas over to ETH1 specs. And then my preference, and this is a weak preference, not as strong as I have in the past, my preference would be then we actually remove them from the IPs repository and just replace them with a pointer. So similar to what we did, I believe, for, I think we did this actually for Berlin. So if you look at the hard fork, the Berlin
Right.
meta EIP, it just points at ETH1 specs repo. If we were to move retroactively move the other ones there, I would be in favor of also having them just have a similar pointer, just to kind of encourage people and reinforce that ETH1 specs repo is the place to go for hard fork meta information.
So the challenge is ETH1 specs repo might not exist in a year. So because if we merge, so I'm fine doing that, but I would wait basically a year until we have actually harmonized the ETH1 specs and ETH2 specs repo before doing it, because then you'll just end up with a bunch of broken links. But I don't mind taking that on once. Like, I guess the first thing I feel like I need to figure out is how do we merge ETH1 specs and ETH2 specs, and it's not the most urgent thing right now, but I think after London it will kind of climb on that list. And once we have that, like, you know, Ethereum specs or whatever, then yeah, I wouldn't mind putting a bunch of pointers and adding the past hard forks. But right now, yeah, the links will just be out of date in 6 to 12 months.
Sure. So are you arguing that we should not backport the hard forks at all, or just we do backport them, but we don't backlink to them?
I think we should backlink to them. But once we have a backlink that we're fairly comfortable will be stable, right? Like, so I don't mind. So if we have, you know, ETH1, or if we link them, if we backlink them to ETH1 specs and the ETH1 specs repo goes away in 6 months, then we have a bunch of broken backlinks we've forgotten about. So if we merge the ETH1 and ETH2 specs repo into like Ethereum specs post merge, then we'll have like one repo we know is going to stay around, and we can backlink them there. And I think that's fine.
If I understand correct, we are ultimately planning to move out everything out of Meta repo, Meta ETH, right? So anyway, we are going to move it out of EIP's, EIP's repository at the end of the day. So if we bring it to the ETH1 repo right now, maybe it will be pulled to the ETH2 or wherever we decide to move, like merging thing. It will be pulled together.
But the link from, so if we do that right now, you basically go to all the meta EIPs and you say this EIP is not accurate, go to ETH1 specs. But all those links will break when we do the transition. And people are already complaining to me a lot that like they don't know where to find the hard fork specs and whatnot. So I'd rather everybody knows that the hard fork meta EIPs are a thing right now. And I'd rather just do this transition once than do it twice. Because now it feels like it's messy and nobody knows where to find the London spec or the Berlin spec. And
so I feel like there's three options here. One, we do keep all hard fork EIPs in the EIP's repository until we're ready to fully move them all to ETH1 specs or ETH specs or whatever. Or we have all of them in ETH specs ASAP, and so that is the canonical source. Or we have what we have right now, which is legacy ones are in ethereum.org meta, and the new ones are in ETH specs. I feel like the way we have now is kind of the worst of both worlds, because there is no canonical place to go to look. I do have a preference that we move the canonical place not to be EIPs, and we start training people on that sooner rather than later. But it sounds like, Tim, you would rather go back on our decision to drop EIPs from Meta, or sorry, drop hard fork EIPs.
No, so I guess, yeah, what I was advocating for is your third option, which when you put it like that does sound pretty terrible. So yeah, in that case, yeah, I feel like the way you framed it, I would probably rather move all the meta EIPs to the ETH1 specs repo. But if we were to do that, I think we should bring it up on our core devs and give people the chance to chime in and whatnot. Like, I don't want to just do it overnight and then, you know, people are like, where the hell? Yeah.
So these historical EIPs are a little bit easier, I think, than London, Shanghai, and Berlin, because those are new. The historical ones aren't changing. So it would not be terrible if we had them duplicated, at least for a period. So we can leave them in the EIP's repo as they are now, don't touch them. And then also have someone go through and transcribe them over to ETH1 specs. And then we can tell people, you know, the right place to look for hard fork changes is the ETH1 specs repo. But people who are still going to the old place will still see the old stuff. So you'll still see more
actually,
Glacier.
I like
EIP's
that.
repo.
And
Yeah.
what we could also do is add a line at the top of every one of those saying, you know, like this, like Mela EIPs are no longer being maintained here. You can see this EIP, you know, in the ETH1 specs repo.
Sure. And then if the if that link breaks, it's not critical because we still have the spec right below
and
it.
we gave, you know, like advanced warning, like say that link breaks in a year, then there's been advanced warning for a year that, you know, this is not the right place.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is very similar to what I was having in my mind. Like we have Berlin.md. So we are going to have like homestead.md. And in that, we will be having everything that was there for homestead meta EIP, whatever it was. Just that EIP, like meta EIP number would not be there, but the content will be there. And in that meta EIP, we are going to just add a liner that this is now available on homestead.md at eth1.org spec repo.
So yeah, if you have someone in mind who wants to go through those hard fork metas and just kind of port them to ETH1 specs repo, I think
I can do it.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help them. Yeah, I was also wondering if I can look into that. Yes.
They're relatively easy to port. I don't think it requires any specialized like Ethereum core dev knowledge. It's a pretty straightforward process, just kind of time consuming.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So at least we are good on this part. So going back to point number 4, where we are discussing about canonical source of EIPs. Just to summarize this, for Brent, he has to continue working on ignoring this fact, which will be coming in future. Just work on the ERC part and extraction of that. For new destination of meta ETHs, not all except EIP1, we would be moving meta ETH, a copy of it to the eth1.org spec repository. And for other proposals, core interface and network, we are like kind of tabling it. Maybe we'll discuss that in future.
That helps a lot. Thanks.
Okay. So moving on, the next item on the agenda is progress on GitHub repo action bot. I believe that's going to be real quick. Alita or Micah, if anyone would like to.
Yeah, I can hop in here. So it's nearly, I can actually just check right now to see how it's doing, but I think it's fine. We want to make one change potentially to it, but there's just like small things, but overall progress is good. I'm hopeful that we can do a or like kind of activate it soon. Mike and maybe you can fill in on his plan for that, but overall going good.
It's currently more reliable than our existing bot. Like our existing bot hasn't merged like 4 or 5 EIPs this week, whereas the Elitist bot has flagged them to be merged. I don't know if it would have actually merged, but it's at least gone green.
Right. So, I mean, if I understand this, whatever Alita's bot is working right now, it is working from her repository. It's not like actually been merged here, right?
So the bot is active on the EIP's repo. We're just not, like, essentially it's a stub version, so it doesn't have the capacity to merge anything yet, but it will in the future. And it's basically running in production, but just not actually merging things. If that answers your question.
Is it still part of your personal GitHub org, or is it part of the Ethereum organization?
Oh yeah, no, it's still my own GitHub. So we do need to move that over to the Ethereum one.
Right. So I believe to mark this action like, completed and this thing is done, we would want to move that to Ethereum GitHub repo, because I don't know, it appeared to me like it's coming from her personal GitHub. When I saw that comments from bot, that was really good. Every time I see Alita on every proposal.
Yeah, so we need two things. One, we need an actual repo in the Ethereum organization, and two, we need a execution key that has a nice bot name, not Alita.
Right. So when you say that repo on Ethereum GitHub, do you mean a bot repo? Wasn't there such a thing earlier? Like there was bot earlier?
I don't think anyone's created a bot repo in Ethereum organization, but maybe they have and I just don't know about it.
Okay. maybe I'll make a note of that. We might want to get into it. So I'll try to get in touch.
Yeah, it's just so whoever, I don't know who actually has rights in the Ethereum organization to create new repositories. So I don't know who to ask.
Yeah. So with that,
it's the EF DevOps team. So I don't even have the right. If somebody can send me just like a quick note, just giving some context about the bot and whatnot, I can get it created.
right. So with that note, I was going to come back on agenda item 1, that was progress on ERC, and I believe we need help there. I'm not sure if we have this ERC repo created yet. Does anyone have any information on that?
I think it's the same problem. We just need the right people to go and create a new repository. I don't know who those people are.
See, I was trying to reach a couple of people, but I had no luck. Maybe Tim, if you can help us on that. We are looking for someone to create a repo and get access to Mica and Lightline at least, so that they can start doing the initial work. And then we'll
so I guess so it's the EF DevOps team. So the only thing I would need for both repo is just kind of some background and summary, like they want to understand why we're creating the repo. So if somebody can just send me kind of a quick paragraph that I can copy paste and give to them, that'll help, along with the who should be like a admin on the repo.
Sure, I'll get in touch with you and I'll provide you the details. So
perfect, thanks.
Yeah, for ERC, I'm very clear on that part. For bot, Micah, would you want to add anything? A bot repo?
I can let Alita probably can describe the bot better than I can, so I'll leave that to her.
Yeah, I'm just gonna reach out to Tim right now with the description of that. So sounds good.
We probably need to bike shed for an hour or two on the name of the bot as well.
I think I can bring it up in the next meeting as like first item we discussed.
Okay.
Okay, that's all about it. I'm not sure if we have anything more to discuss on ERC's it is created.
Was that the thing that we're waiting for Lightline to show up for? The first agenda item that we delayed till the end?
Right. Yeah, right. So yeah, I was wondering if he has any more updates or he's aware of anything.
Sorry, updates on which one?
ERC repo, but I understand.
Oh no, yeah, I haven't. Just waiting to get it created.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, like, if I understand right, after it is created, we will start moving and we will have to publish a like kind of announcement blog, like mentioning what all changes we are doing with that process. And maybe I was wondering if we should start adding questions and concerns with ERCs. I have been receiving quite a few comments when with NFTs and all, they are having some discussion around this versus this standard and all. So these kind of stuff may be added in future EIPIP con. Okay. So that's all on the item. I think we can go ahead with the action item and summary from the last meeting. The first one is create ERC repo. We are still working on it, and I will provide.
Hey, Piper. Thank you.
Details to.
How's it going?
Your mic's live.
Nice. Oh, sorry, guys. I just mentioned this meeting. They just told me my mic is live.
Your mic's still live, Matt.
Okay. So the next item is update eips.ethereum.org with changes to EIP and ERC repo. I believe we are going to see this like in our next 1 or 2 meetings. We have to work on that. Create a boundary for JSON RPC API spec. I'm not sure if we are going to create a boundary right away, but I'm expecting some kind of write-up on that maybe from Alita. That would be helpful. And complete EIP repo bot. We discussed this today. Determine pay rates for EIP editors. I don't know. I'm going to talk to Malak people for that. I have a meeting this week. So after the conversation, maybe if we can get some kind of clear picture in that on funding part, I will be happy to share that in the next meeting. The next item is 31.6. It's add an ERC dictated editor. For now, I'm considering Lightline for the editor of ERC, as he has shown interest on working on that. But in future, if we need more and more people, we'll try to reach out to community. So that's all about it. Anyone wants to bring up anything?
So there is one thing, which is that there is more work to be done with the bot and moving forward. I'm kind of awaiting like funding for that. So that would be one thing to look into. I don't know if that's more of an ECH meeting thing to talk about though.
For bot funding, Alika?
Yeah, for continued work beyond the initial merge. So like the stuff we talked about today, that's all gonna be done. That's included in the initial implementation, but then there's other work like transferring over the Circle integration to GitHub Actions, adding some more features to the bot, more considerations along those lines.
I think I could use help here from the EIP editors. Like whatever we have decided for the first task, I believe we have decided on a fixed amount to be for that work to be done. And whenever we come up with any kind of enhancement work or nice to have feature that has to be added on EIP bot, if we can just create an issue, maybe in this EIPIP repo or the ethereum.eip GitHub, wherever, and give an estimate of time or like, work needed, the feature that has to be added, that would be easier for cat holders to follow up and, kind of provide funding. Funding should not be a problem. That is something that we would like to cover from the Ethereum cat holder side. But getting an estimate of work and how much funding is required would be helpful.
So I think that it would be easier for everyone except for the cat herders if we were able to hire someone to kind of work somewhat unboundedly at an hourly rate or something like that, or salary. Just because there's a number of kind of small tasks, and often in engineering, the cost of estimating how long something will take ends up taking more effort than just doing the task. And so I'm worried that we would end up wasting more time and money on just doing estimates than we would on just having someone that we could kind of like a regular person who we go back to and say, hey, we got some more work, start clocking hours or whatever the process is.
So yeah, I'm planning to have a request shared this time for like next quarter, maybe for an on-call engineer, 1 hour per day, kind of like 20 hours a month or something like that. So I hope.
Yeah, something like that I think would work much better than trying to figure out like how much each project costs, just because there's like lots of little things that I think we could really benefit from having just an engineer who is somewhat familiar with our process and who we can kind of go back to.
Yeah.
Is this specifically related to EIP editing or a different set of tasks?
EIP bot.
EIP stuff. It's bots that help us do editing easier, make the bots better, improve them. There are also things like we talked about, this whole thing with the ERCs versus EIPs. We want them to kind of share a numbering system, and so someone could write like some tooling that makes it so we have a mechanism for getting shared numbers so they don't conflict, don't overlap. Just miscellaneous stuff like that. But yes, bots would definitely be probably the number one then.
My next question is this work that's already happening? Like Micah, would you consider yourself as a person to do this kind of stuff, or are you trying to get other people to?
It is work that is not happening because we don't currently have anyone. Like we have everyone who does EIP editing is an engineer, but none of them actually do engineering for the EIP editing. The last person who did a significant amount, I think, was Nick Johnson, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm here with the original bots, and since then we basically have, we have engineers who are editors, but not acting as engineers, if that makes sense.
Okay, so but are you proposing like that you would be doing this work, or you're saying generally
very much
there should be someone?
I'm suggesting, there should be someone. Alita has done work for us previously on the bot she recently wrote, and so I would be fine with her being that person or someone else. Like I'm not particularly attached to any one person. I more care, but there's somebody.
Yeah,
okay, great.
That was another point of consideration. Like I'm requesting this funding for, but I may not be able to understand to whom it has to be dispersed, or when and how much. If it is just on a monthly basis, we are requesting for like 20 hours a month or so. I cannot say for sure that it is secured until it is actually secure. But when a job comes, if we keep on posting that this is supposed to be done and this has been done in this month, that would be really helpful for a lot of us.
Yeah, I think having an after the fact, just like what was worked on, shouldn't be too big of a problem. That's much easier than trying to do estimates of future work.
Yeah, like just submitting an invoice.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, these are all good conversation. I'm very happy that we made some good progress today. I mean, like every meeting we do, but yes, there was a lot of clarity I personally was looking for. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I hope to see you all in 2 weeks. Please keep sharing any thoughts, any comments, any concern that you would want to bring it up related to process improvement of Ethereum ecosystem. Make a comment on agenda, or you can reach out to us, all the members of EIPIP group. Have a good day, evening, everyone. See you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Pooja.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye all.